You could be missing out on over 100 plus points on your SAT math score by not knowing these Desmos basics. In this video, I'm going to be going over the key things you need to know on Desmos to increase your SAT math score, and a little bit at the end of a crazy linear regression problem on one of the hardest problems on the SAT and how Desmos can solve it for you in about 30 seconds. If you are looking for more tips and tricks to improve your SAT score, this video is for you. And if you have any questions, meet me in the comments, but check it out. Hi, I'm Rebecca Beard. I own NicevilleTutoring, which we cover subjects K through 12 with an emphasis on test prep. We have over 45 teachers on staff who support students online and in person. If you're looking for some support, we have our link in the description below, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with study tips and tricks. Okay, so we are going to start with the absolute basic features of Desmos. Some of this may be a review for you, but I have a lot of students that I work with that do not know these basics. And if you don't know the basics, everything else is a total wash. So this is going to be the basics on features before we get into the basic level questions. So let's just go over basics of features. And then full disclaimer for this recording, and since part of this recording will be behind a paywall, we will be using a third-party resource, but this is an adoption that we have taken in our practice from MentoMind AI. They use pretty much very, very similar to College Board Blue Book practice tests. They have built-in Desmos. They have a stupid amount of practice exams. So absolutely love this platform. I've seen huge differences in our students, but that all being said, I am not going to use the Blue Book, but it's very similar. So let's go ahead and just kind of walk through those basics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to a practice test. And then what you will see me do is you're going to see me quickly skip forward through the ELA. And then we just want to get to the math. Okay, so absolute basics of Desmos. These are just like a couple of small features that one of them actually took longer than it should have for me to learn, in all honesty. Okay, so as you are looking at this, if you're looking at the College Blue Book, it looks very, very similar, but Desmos is going to be a calculator button. They now have one that's a scientific mode. I just stay in graphing calculator mode. So you click it, that's where it pops up. I have students that don't even know where that is. So that all being said, let's just kind of do a walkthrough of the calculator. So basic features is you always type your answers or what do you want to put in there so that it pops up. If you do like A plus B, it's a graph, so it's going to be upset. So try to stick with them. I'll have some examples later of like X and Y when you can, except when you get to constants. That's a whole other discussion there. And then another feature to know is that a lot of the stuff is right here in that little keyboard-like button. You've got everything from absolute values, squared, all that good stuff. And then functions is where a lot of stuff lives. You've got all your trig functions, your inverse, the statistics ones, hands down, mean, median, mode. Well, not mode, but standard deviation is really important. And then as you scroll down, there is a lot on here that you're not going to need, to be totally honest, but it's helpful to know where those are. And then the other ones that I find myself using a little bit more are going to be these number theory ones. You don't have to know them all. It's just you got to know where to look for stuff. The other thing you need to know where to look is this ABC button. It's just deceiving because it's actually not. I mean, it's got ABCs, but there's a lot more to it. So what you get, yes, you have the letters. And then whenever we talk about regressions and like sub 1, this is where you are going to put it. So it'd be like X sub 1. We'll get there on some later content. And then whenever we get to regressions, whenever you see this little squiggly line, we're going to call it squiggly line because that's actually what you're going to remember, not the fancy term. That's where you find it there. And then the last thing to note on the Desmos calculator, and this is the one that it was kind of embarrassing. It took me a while to figure out. This is how you go from degrees to radians. You don't have to do it much, except on a couple things. If you go to like all this stuff, complex mode, all that, you don't really want to mess with that. But degrees and radians, there's sometimes one or two questions that you actually need to know that. And then for good measure, because a lot of students also don't know this one, the reference please know that there's a reference table. Some of it is honestly like not super helpful, but the ones I always say is know that there's special right triangles on there. And then some of the volumes that a lot of us just don't remember. And then the like pretty much degrees to radians, some of that's in there too. But honestly, special right triangles is personally the only one I use it for. Maybe if I'm forgetting about a cylinder when they have those, but those can be kind of an odd duck. So the next segment is actually going to be starting basic questions and how to solve them with Desmos. Okay, so for basic circles, whenever I see something like this, my brain is automatically like, technically you would do it by perfect square, which is a pain in the butt. So all you have to do is you go x squared plus y squared minus 6x plus 8y minus 11. So I'm literally just typing in the problem. I see a beautiful circle, and then we know radius is half of the diameter, but it's a little bit easier just to look at the diameter. So we see it's a 2 here and a negative 10. So that whole diameter is 12, which means the radius is going to be 6. So basic hack, see a circle, put it into Desmos, at least just to visualize it. It's really, really helpful. Okay, so this is how you quickly solve for x using Desmos, because this one right here would be super annoying to use without Desmos. So I take this equation, I look like it's clear that they're solving for x, and there's kind of a few ways to do it. So what I'm going to do first off, so I just type in this equation, minus 4 squared, and then make sure tab over equals, and then let's go our square root, 48 plus 2x squared. So let me zoom out and then we can kind of have a better viewpoint. So the thing that stinks with this when you have these square roots is a little gray dot that normally pops up, does not pop up. So that's the downside. But regardless, it's saving a ton of time. So we're looking at this and we're looking what this is going to be like 9.6 something, 9.7-ish, a little bit less. So let's see what these values actually equal. So then I type in these values for, and you can easily do this part on your handheld calculator too. So that's about -4. So then it's not going to be 1. So let's go 2 minus 4 radical or square root of 2. And then, ooh, okay. So one issue we're running into is we are only looking at one side. So it's asking us the smallest solution. So this is kind of a good troubleshooting and good reminder to check the other side. So if we're looking here, let's zoom back in. So we're looking actually for that like -1 point something. So what we do is we go 1 minus 4 radical 2. That is still going to be too big. So let's go ahead and try C, because that seems a little bit more likely. And that's -1.65. That's about that. And so the answer is C. So this is pretty much demonstrating how to troubleshoot and also how to solve for X and kind of some common fallacies. So just like I did, and I am purposely including this in the recording of me making the small mistake so that you should see what's normal, but make sure you absolutely zoom out because it's asking for the smallest solution. Okay, so this is systems of equations. They have this in some form on literally every single SAT test, practice test, you name it. All you have to do is you have to type them in. So whenever you see two equations like this, just type them in. Go ahead, and this one is asking, so one of the variations would be like, what is the X value, which obviously that will pop up. But that being said, this one is just asking for how many solutions or pretty much how many times I cross. So this one's going to be exactly 1, but some variations could be like, hey, what is the like X value? What's the Y value? It's pretty particular, but this one is pretty straightforward. So absolute values is a very basic level of what you can solve on Desmos on the SAT. So let's check this one out. So you have this complicated absolute value problem, which would be annoying to solve, but all you have to do is you just type it in. So you go 3, 5 minus x, and then plus 4, parentheses, 5 minus x equals 28. So let's go ahead and scroll out. So that way you can see our x-axis because it's just a little bit easier. So since all the x's are in there, that is what you're solving for. So as you zoom in, and mine zoomed in a little bit too much, you see that there is a solution here and then also a solution here. So the answer on this one is which of the following is a possible solution to the given equation. So I'm seeing a 9 and I'm seeing a 1. And so the answer on this one is going to be 9. Okay, so this is going to be pretty much how to find intersections quickly on kind of like a basic level. So whenever I see this, my first gut instinct is I'm going to plug it into Desmos equals 5x minus 20. And then you have two intersection points. You have h comma 0 is going to be your y-intercept, and then 0 comma k is pretty much going to be, I'm sorry, h is going to be your x, and then your y is going to be your k. And so what I do is I type both of these and then I see both the numbers, and then what I notice is that they're adding them. So the answer on this one is going to be 16. These ones pop up a lot, but they're so much easier with just being able to visually type in it instead of hand solving. This is how you use Desmos to match graphs really easily. So you've got your beautiful picture up there, and then what you do is you type this in, f of x equals to 2 x minus 1 squared. So literally I'm just typing in the equations and ready to match. Now, some of you guys are really good at line behavior. Some kids are not. So this is just for a kiddo that's struggling or wants to confirm their answer. So we know A is wrong because it's a little bit lost. And then what I do is I just quickly make small little pivots. So that would be plus 4. So we can try that. And then that one still does not match the graph. And then let's go ahead and change this. You just do small little tweaks to verify. And then that one's looking real promising. And then what you can always do just to feel 100% confident is do that plus 6. But if you look at it, that's on 4 and that's on 6. So the answer is C. This is one of my favorites because I actually cannot stand inequalities. So Desmos and inequalities are best buds. So here is our inequality. This is a really like normal question for your SAT. And pretty much you just have to figure out like what points are in the shaded region. So when you type this in, it's pretty straightforward. You just type in exactly that you see. Make sure the alligator or the Pac-Man, whatever you prefer, is eating the right number. And then what's really nice is it'll shade it for you. And then people will waste time by just like looking through it, but actually the fastest way is to plot points. So I'm going to put in my first point, and 1 comma 9 on A is looking promising, but let's go ahead and test a few. So 2 comma 15. And then that's looking good. And then let's go ahead and check the last one of A. Well, you might get lucky and it might be all right. And then, okay, so this is a good, let's zoom in. Actually, A is correct because all the points are in the shaded area. So the answer on this one would be A. Let me show you how it looks when it looks wrong. So if we check a point on B, let's just go 2 comma 18. See, that one is outside of it, so that would be wrong. So absolutely, Desmos, inequalities, best buds. Okay, so a really kind of good way to use Desmos on a basic level is going ahead and find your parabola mins and maxes. These come up on a lot of tests, but they're really, really straightforward. So let's go ahead and do this. So you've got f of x equals x to the power of 2, or x squared, minus 6x plus 13. And then we go ahead and look right there, and it's asking for pretty much for what value of x does f of x reach its minimum, and I'm seeing 3, and I'm seeing 3, so the answer is 3. So now that you got through the basics, this is how you can actually use Desmos to solve one of the much more harder problems. So you see this right here. You've got ax squared plus bx plus c, and pretty much you have to find out what all those variables are. You can do it by hand. It's going to just take a dang long time. So this is kind of how you use the regression features in Desmos to figure this out. So what I'm going to do is a little bit different. This is why this one's a little bit more hard level. It's always going to start with the basics. So if you go x sub 1, and the key is when you are finding these ABC variables, you need to have that sub 1. If not, it will not work. And then I'm just still typing it in, plus 9. And then we go plus x. And so I'm going to put x sub 1 here. And then the next thing you need to do is add that little squiggly line right here. And then now you're going to type in what you're looking for. But there's like one more really key thing that a lot of people forget about. And let's go ahead and make sure we add that 1 there. Okay, this is where it takes a little bit of practice. Okay, and then you go plus b x sub 1, and then you go plus c. Then you see this, you're like, I don't know if that's right, and that should be a big red flag that it is not. So this is kind of the last key thing. So you need to go x sub 1, and this is really weird, but it works, equals random 99. And pretty much you don't really have to understand it, but what you do have to understand is it's actually going to give you the right answers. So it's asking for all those values. So then what you would do is you would go ahead and add up that -3 minus 17 and then -18. You got your -38, and then you're done, which would have taken you a ton more time by hand. There are so many more hacks like this for your SAT exam. And in our own tutoring business, we have successfully increased SAT scores substantially by just teaching these basic hacks. If you want a full guide with study materials on how to improve your SAT score very easily with Desmos, I'm going to drop the link below and you can go ahead and check it out. And if you have any questions, or even if this has helped you, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Like and subscribe to be up to date with SAT tips and tricks.